Okay, Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulillahi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala wa ba'du. Um, Before we begin class, um, I want to make you aware of some changes that we're going to make because of Ramadan coming. Uh, no, this class starts at 7. Then when Isha comes, we stop, pray, and continue. Okay, so what we're going to do, because of Ramadan and it being the month of the Quran, we're going to try to focus on those classes either pertaining to the Quran, which is our class on the fundamentals of tafsir, or having to do with fasting, which is our class on Islamic legislation or fiqh. Okay. So with that being said, before we go on to the Arabic, I was reminded today of a hadith that has some pertinence to the situation that's going on today. I feel, and it kind of reminds me of I always talk about how we're not able to cover everything that we should study. I try to slim down so not to overwhelm everyone. Try to slim the classes down to what I believe to be the most pertinent and relevant topics. But one of the things that it is important for the person that is sitting in the circles of knowledge to know or to study and to learn about is what's called adab talib al-ilm, the etiquettes of seeking knowledge. وَفَضْلُ الْعِلْمِ وَالْعَالِمِ وَالْمُتَعَلِّمِ, and also the virtues of knowledge, the scholar or the person that teaches it, the person that learns it. All of these people that with their different classes, they have virtue to them. And knowing that virtue, there are certain etiquettes that go along with those people in the situation of seeking knowledge. And we're just going to touch on one thing in particular before we go on. I don't want to be long-winded. There's a hadith. The hadith of Waqid al-Laythi radiyallahu anhu. And this hadith is recorded in Sahih Bukhari. وقال أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بينما هو جالس في المسجد ومعه ناس. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, at a time this happened at a time when he was sitting in the masjid with some people. فأقبل عليه ثلاث نفر. So 3 people were heading towards them. 3 individuals were heading towards them. فوقف اثنان وذهب واحد. 2 of them stayed and 1 left. فأما أحدهم فوجد في المجلس فرجة فجلس فيها. As for one of the individuals, he saw an opening in the sitting. Now remember, this is the Prophet ﷺ, so it's crowded. People all around him wanted to hear what he had to say. So one of the individuals, he was able to find an opening in the sitting, and he sat there. وأما الآخر فجلس حيث انتهى الناس. As for the second person, then he sat at the edge of the or the outer skirts, so you could say, I guess, of the sitting. وأما الثالثة فأدبر ذاهبا. And as for the third one, he turned around and left. فلما فرغ رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال ألا أخبركم بالنفر ثلاثة. So when the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم finished his talk, or what he was saying to the people, he said, should I not inform you about the three individuals? He says, أما الأول فآواه الله. Says, as for the first person, the one that found a place in the sitting that was close to the Prophet or in the sitting, he says he sought Allah, so Allah made it easy for him. Allah opened a place for him. Allah showed him mercy by allowing him to be able to sit in this sitting. So that's the first one. And that was his situation, his condition. And then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, أما الثاني or أما الآخر فاستحيا الله منه. As for the second person, the second individual, that's the one that sat on the outer skirts of the sitting, he said that he was shy. So Allah was shy from him. وأما الثالث وأما الثالث, as for the third person, فأعرض الله عنه. As for the third person, he avoided the sitting, so Allah avoided him. What is it that we can understand from this hadith? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed emphasis for the Muslim and blessings upon them when it comes to seeking knowledge. In fact, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Talabul ilmi faridatun ala kulli muslimin wa muslima." The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that seeking knowledge is obligatory for every Muslim man and woman. And there's several hadith which talks about the people of knowledge, those who invest in it, and so forth. And this hadith shows us that it is not appropriate and suitable to be shy when it comes to knowledge, or be embarrassed, which is a part of being shy, when it comes to knowledge. One of the companions, the female companion, went to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said, "Inna Allah la yastahi min al-haq. Alil nisa al-ghusl idha ihtamalat." One of the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, female companion, she went to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said, "Allah is not shy from the truth. Does a woman have to make a ghusl if she has a wet dream?" She could have said, "I'm embarrassed, I can't answer it." No. There is no embarrassment when it comes to finding out about your religion. There is none. There's another hadith where Aisha, at the end of the hadith, she said, I'm going to tell you what the hadith is about, but first, at the end of the hadith, she said, "Ni'ma nisa al-ansar, lam yamna'hum al-haya yatafaqqahna fi ad-din." She said the best of the people, or what a great people, not the best of people, what a great people the women of the Ansar are. They don't allow embarrassment and being shy to stop them from learning about their religion. Right? So what happened? What made Aisha said that? A woman came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said, "Inni athujju thajjan that, I'm bleeding profusely. So he says, so the Prophet ﷺ said that is an irq. That's a blood vessel that has burst in you. So, اغتسلي وصلي. Well, first he said اغتسلي وخذ خرقة ممسكة وتطهري بها. He told her, so all you have to do is purify yourself. He says, take a ghusl, wash yourself, bathe yourself. Then when you're done bathing, take a cloth that has been scented and purify yourself with it. Now this sister, this companion, she did not understand what he meant. So he said, كيف أتطهر بها? How do I purify myself with it? And the Prophet ﷺ, because of his shyness, he didn't want to get into specifics. He said, Subhanallah, tatahirina biha. He said, glory be to Allah, purify yourself with it. It was only after Aisha leaned in and explained to the companion what he meant when she said, Ittabi'i athar ad-dam. Follow the traces of blood, the places where the blood is and stuff. And purify yourself by wiping those areas where blood is. And after that, that's when she said that saying and stuff. Subhanallah, I mean, I remember when I first started seeking knowledge, and you're in between, some of you guys might be able to attest to this, being young and stuff like that, you think you know something. So you're learning, and you're getting pumped, and kind of boastful about what you know. You sit in a class with the sheikh start asking questions, and you're just thinking that you could, on all cylinders and start answering them. And then you find out in a scenario like that just how much you don't know. Because of shit, no, wrong, no, wrong, no. And I remember in one occasion, I had called one of the scholars for asking a question about praying behind an individual that I thought might have issues in his belief system, issues that would take him out of the fold of Islam. So I said, I wanted to know if it was permissible to pray behind someone like that. So the sheikh says, pray behind the Muslims, right? And I was like, but sheikh, he could be, this, he could be that. He said, could be this, could be that. Then he hung up on me. And I learned something from that, though. I learned that I should not make my ignorance be what dictates my behavior. And also I learned before I ask a question, I try to do research too as well. So I won't make myself look as a bigger fool than I normally would. But with our ignorance, we can't let that stop us from learning. Now, mashallah, we have the sheikh here, mashallah. The Sheikh Ulysses, who I'm talking about, he's the one that suggested that we do the Arabic at the beginning of our classes. He's the one that suggested that. And mashallah, I mean, he's been actively participating. Some people are intimidated by the Arabic. Nothing wrong with intimidation. But we learn from mistakes, we learn from practice, and we learn from seeing, we learn from hearing, we learn from all these different avenues. And not everyone learns the same. If you go away like the person that's in the hadith, sees the sitting of knowledge and goes away, leaves it. So Allah leaves him. How are you going to benefit? Is that person going to be put in a situation where Allah is going to put barakah, put blessing in their seeking knowledge, when that's the route that they take? Or the one that is shy or embarrassed, so he sits on the outskirt, or she sits on the outer edge, so maybe she won't be called on, you know what I'm saying? And maybe the only reason, I mean, Allah knows best, with that scenario, what happened in the hadith. Some of the scholars say the reason why that person sat on the outer skirts, because he knew it would be wrong to leave the sitting. So out of shyness, but still respect, he sat He sat in there, but he made sure that he sat on the outer edges. So that was one of the explanations of the scholars. Allah knows best with that. So what I'm trying to say here, brothers and sisters, is that we're all here to learn. We're all going to make mistakes. Let's make mistakes together and let's learn together. That's why we're here. And now no one here, I think, is expecting everyone to have the answers. So why are we embarrassed to get it wrong? Why? Right? So with that being said, though, I am going to change the way that I do conduct the classes to, I guess, make some people who have the wrong understanding of this issue a little bit more comfortable. So I'm only going to be calling on those people to answer questions that raise their hands. So those people who don't want to be put out there, or they don't know the answer, or don't want to make the attempt, they don't have to, because I'll only choose those people that want to give it a try. Okay, so with that being said, we can now get into the class. So as far as the class is concerned, there's only going to be 3 subjects. We're going to have the Arabic, we're going to have fundamentals of tafsir, and we're going to have fiqh, dealing with fasting. And we're going to do that until Ramadan is over, inshallah. Then we'll go back to our regular classes, inshallah. Okay? Okay, so with that being said, now we've covered 5 letters already with this mark on each letter, and that mark that's on the bottom of each letter is called a what? Kasra. It's called a kasra, right? And the kasra gives the letter what sound? What sound does it give it? The E sound, right? So it's equivalent to the E sound, vowel sound in English. Okay. So now let's look at these letters and see if we can identify these letters. The first letter we have here is this. Now I'm going as if we're reading English. I know that, in Arabic we start here, but I'm randomizing. So, all right, so I'm going to start with this one. This letter is a what? Raise your hand if you know.
Seen.
Go ahead.
Seen.
Seen. It is seen, not sheen. Seen. He said sheen. Didn't he say sheen? Yeah. Okay, so seen has a kasra underneath it. How does seen sound with a kasra underneath it? Raise your hand if you know. Anybody back there? Go ahead. Yeah. See. That's C. If you elongate like that, that's a different thing. Now we gotta put something at the end to show the elongation, but you have to make it short. These are short vowel sounds. So it's C. Right? Alright, so the next one that we're going to look at is this one right here, 2 dots at the bottom. What letter is this? Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And how do you say a yeah with a kasra underneath it? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right, the next one that we're going to look at is this one. What letter is this? Who knows? The ba. Right, the ba. And how do we say a ba with a kasra underneath it? Big. Who said big? Is it you, sis? Yep, that is correct. Big. So we have big, sit, ye. So you notice the similarities in the sound, how the vowel makes that sound, the E sound. So we have big, sit, ye. Okay, so what is this? Now this one is tricky, Carl. You guys have to remember what we called it. Hamza. That is correct. But you don't raise your hand and then shout out the answer. Okay? You raise your hand and wait to be called on. Alright, understand that? That's the whole point of raising your hand. Alright? Okay, so this is the Hamza. And the Hamza has a kasra underneath it. So what sound does that make? Anyone back there knows? Go ahead. I. That's right. So we have bi, I, ye, and sit. Right? So now we only have this last one right here. What letter is this? Who knows? Calf. Not cough. I know some people mix those two up together. And that's the reason why we do it like this. Right? Because you guys people are always used to seeing the letters in order. and then you have two letters that sound almost the same right next to each other. So doing it out of order like this, separating some of the words, is a good way for you to be able to distinguish one letter from the other. So this is a calf. And what sound does a calf make with a kasra underneath it? Hold on. We'll continue after the adhan. Okay, so we have the calf. The calf has a kasra underneath it. How do we say a calf with a kasra underneath it? Go ahead. Ki. All right. So we have si, ki, yi, e, b. All right. Like b, like Bismillah. Right. B. So we have b, e, yi, ki, si. And those are the three new letters that we're covering for today, inshallah ta'ala. So this gives you guys a whole week to go home, study them, try to recognize them, add them to what we've already studied, which was these five, right? The thal, the tha, the noon, the ra, and the lam. Okay? The ra. You want to know where's the ra? Point it out to me. Where's the ra? No, get up and point it. Get up. Watch your cup too. Don't knock your cup over. Go ahead. That's the ra? Wrong. Right. That is correct. Yes. All right. So yes, those are the new letters. So next we're gonna have these four that we're going to study next class. Bi'idhnillahi Jalla Jalaluhu. Okay. So with that being said, let's go on now to the fundamentals of tafsir. Fundamentals of tafsir. And because this is going to be one of our only classes that we're covering, we should cover a lot of topics in this particular class. Last time we covered about the difference between the Medan surahs and the Meccan surahs. You know, what kind of differences are there between them? Okay, so here we are, the Meccan and Medan chapters. So, how do we know, or how do we distinguish a Medan verse from a Meccan verse? What are some of the attributes?
Medan is more aggressive.
Okay, serve the prophets. That's a more specific example, but it is a good example. What would that be in the Meccan or the Medan of surahs? Wrong. It will be in the Medan. Yes, the Meccan surahs focuses on invalidating the beliefs of the disbelievers of Mecca for the most part. You know, the stories of the prophets and things like that, you'll find those in the later verses of the Quran. So that's why you'll find a lot of that in like Surah Al-Baqarah, Ali Imran, and those verses and stuff like that, because they're all Medan verses. All those are Medan verses. And Medan verses happen after the Prophet ﷺ did what? Make hijrah, right? make hijrah. He migrated to Medina. So any surah or any verse that is revealed after the hijrah, they are called Medan. Okay. Does someone have a question? I thought I saw somebody raising hand. Okay. All right. So that's what we covered last time. And we covered this, right? We covered the subject matter, right? And okay. Hold on. Oops. Missed a lot of stuff. I'm too far. Okay. Next thing we're going to cover is talking about the tartib of the Quran, the order of the Quran, that the order that it's in, right? So when it comes to that, what are we talking about exactly? So we're saying the order of the Quran. Is it time?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So we're going to stop right here, pray inshallah, and then we'll continue after the salah. Can we just leave everything up here, or is it going to get in the way? Okay. Let's pray, inshallah. Your cup and chair. Put your chair back. Your cup. What's this on the floor? You sharpen this pencil? I know. Okay, books.
So, Mr. King, Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنا من المرسلين على صراط مستقيم أنزل الذين كفروا لتنذر قوما إلا أنفسهم فهم كافرون قد خلقه على أكبارهم ثم يؤمنون الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق من شر غاسق إذا وقب ومن شر النفاثات في العقد من شر حاسد إذا حسد الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Sami Allahu liman hamidah. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Sami Allahu liman hamidah. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi
It's not something that will invalidate you. Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Okay. So, right now what we're doing is actually something that actually shows the importance of knowledge. That after the prayer, which is obligatory, we get up and we get right back to it. Right? Like the scholars used to say, the most rewarding and beneficial thing that a person can do of optional worship is seeking knowledge. So one of the companions, they asked the Prophet, I'm sorry, not one of the companions, one of the students of Imam Ahmed, they asked him, this is even better than jihad? He says, it's even better than jihad. And that's why you'll see a lot of scholars that after they finish praying the obligatory salat, they'll continue their class. Some of they do if they feel that they have time to combine between both, making your sunnahs and then being able to continue the class, they'll do that. But if they feel that time is restricted or something like that, because of the extreme reward in seeking knowledge, they'll just go straight in. And there's nothing wrong with that. So that's why, if you're wondering why I just get up after the prayer and just start my class, that's the reason why. Okay. So now let's go back to this. Now we're talking about the tartib, or the order of the Quran. Right? So it says here, the order of the Quran, its recitation in succession. Meaning one after another, in accordance to what is present in the written form and preserved in the heart. Basically, we're talking about the order of the Quran as we know it. What we see in the Mus'haf, or what some people call, I guess, the Arabic Quran, or what people have memorized. So what is the issue with that? Okay, let's look at this now. Okay, there are three things we have to consider. Right? First of all, the order of the words are in such a way that every word is where it should be in the verse. This is established through contextual evidence. That means we have text that proves that the words that are in the Quran and the order of the words, there are the way that it should be, right? As well as consensus. That means all Muslims. And when we talk about all Muslims, we're not talking about every Tom, Dick, and Harry, as they say. We're talking about the scholars. Whenever they say the Muslims agree on something, they're not saying that they went and did a consensus on every person that's a Muslim that took their shahada. No, they're talking about the learned scholar from the people and things like that they agree on a specific issue. So there's consensus in this issue. So when it comes to the order of the words in the Quran, it's important to know that it is not permissible to change the order of the words. It's not permissible to change the order of the words. Right? That's agreed upon. Right? No differences of opinion in that. So, Qul huwa Allahu ahad, you can't say Allahu ahad qul, for example. Right? You can't say that. Okay. The second is the order of the verses. Now, we're not talking about words. Right? We're going now. That is like, for example, we're not talking about words. We're talking about sentences now. Like, comparing verses to sentences. We're talking about sentences. So the order of the verses in such a way that every verse is where it should be in the surah. This is established through contextual evidence as well as consensus. So like the order of the words, the order of the verses are the way that they should be, and there is evidence to back that up, and there's also consensus. The correct opinion. So this right here is different than the first one. When it comes to the words, everybody's in agreement that you can't change them. The order. You can't change the order. When it comes to the verses, there is a opinion that says that you can change the order of them, but the correct opinion is that it is not permissible to change the order of the verses. Now this is important. So you see some people that there's someone, I think he was a Russian child or something like that had memorized the Quran so well that he can recite it backwards. The scholars say not permissible to do that. It's not permissible for him to do that because he's reciting the verses out of order, and it is not permissible to do that. Okay. The next thing that we're going to talk about is the order of the surah. Now we've gone from verses. Well, first we went from words to verses, and now we're talking about the surah themselves. So the order of the surahs is in such a way that every surah is where it should be in the mushaf. And when we talk about the mushaf, we're talking about the Arabic, what some people might call the Arabic Quran. The name for that is actually mushaf. The name for that's the Arabic term that's used for the Arabic Quran. It's called a mushaf. Okay. So, when we talk about the way that it is ordered in the mushaf, it says this is established through inference. That means there's contextual evidence to support this, that the order that it is the way that it should be. So it is not obligatory, right? Because the order that it is inference. So this issue comes up when you talk about, some scholars talking about, like when you recite in the salat, right? You recite one surah. Can you recite Ali Imran after you recite Qul Huwallahu Ahad? Can you do that? Because Ali Imran is at the beginning of the Quran, right? And then you have Qul Huwallahu Ahad is near the end. So can you do that? Right? Some of the scholars say that yes, you can. It's not obligatory for you to keep that order. It's not obligatory for you to keep that order. So you can do that. Okay, so that's what we've learned about the order of the Quran. Now here we have a statement by one of the scholars, Ibn Taymiyyah, Shaykh al-Islam, who said, reading this verse before that verse is permissible. Likewise, when reading, this is why the mushaf of the companions vary. So now the reason why they say it's permissible to read one verse before another, they say that, and actually it shouldn't say verse, actually it should say surah. I'm sorry, it should say surah, not verse. So the reason why it's permissible to recite or read one surah before another, because the companions themselves who had written down the Quran, right? They had the surahs in different places. Not all of them agreed to where to put each surah, right? But when they agreed on the Mus'haf during the time, so what happened was, Thabit ibn Zayd, he was a companion that gathered the Mus'haf together under the command of Uthman, right? This happened during the time of Uthman, radiallahu anhum, right? So when Thabit, he put the Mus'haf together, the Mus'haf that we know now, and all of the companions was like, yeah, that's what we know. That is Allah's words, right? This became the Sunnah, right? This became the Sunnah of the rightly guided Caliphate, right? Because this was done through the order of Uthman. Uthman is one of the Caliphate that was rightly guided, and we know that the Prophet ﷺ said, what? إِنَّكُمْ سَيَرَى بَعْدِي اِخْتِلَافًا كَثِيرًا. You guys will see a lot of differences after me. فَعَلَيْكُمْ بِالسُّنَّةِ وَسُنَّةِ خُلَفَاءِ الرَّاشِدِينَ الْمَهْدِيِّينَ مِنْ بَعْدِي. So upon you, I command you to hold on to my sunnah and the sunnah of the rightly guided caliphate after me. So a lot of people understand that to mean Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali radiallahu anhum ajma'een. Okay. The narration has indicated that it is obligatory to follow their sunnah, and that's the narration that I just gave you guys. So from that point of view, right, it is not permissible for you to read the surahs out of order according to how some of the scholars look at it. But like we said, it is permissible. Okay, now we're going to talk about Kabatul Quran wa jam'uhu. Now we're going to get into some of the history of the Quran. Right, we're going to talk about the Quran being written down and being compiled. The compilation of the Quran and it being written down. So, the 3 steps of writing and compilation of the Quran. So the Quran was written down and compiled in 3 steps. The first one was during the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ, in which reliance was more upon memorization of the Quran more than writing it due to their good memory. So the people at the time of the Prophet ﷺ had good memory. And because of that, and also a lot of them were also illiterate. So because of those 2 things, the people relied more upon their memory of the Quran than writing things down. Does that mean that no one wrote down the Quran? No, that's not what it means. In fact, there were companions that were learned that did write the Quran down, and they wrote the Sunnah down as well. Okay, so due to their good memory and fast memorization, the absence of sufficient individuals who know how to write and the materials to write with. So all of those things together made an environment where majority of the Quran was memorized and not written down. Or the majority of people, the Quran was written down, but the majority of people memorized instead of write down the Quran because of these things, these elements being present. Because of this, it was not made into a book form during the time of the Prophet ﷺ. It was not made into a book form. But there were a lot of people who had memorized the Quran during the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Okay? Okay. Yeah. That has a lot to do with it, because the Quran was set down, and the way the Quran is stylized actually was to compete against the poetry of that time. That was part of it as well. So they were people that were well versed in poem and poetry, and the Quran was set down in that type of style as well to combat that, and in fact to far exceed what they're used to from poetry and things like that. Okay, the next step, the second step, is during the era of Abu Bakr. Okay, so we finished with the era of the Prophet ﷺ. So we know that during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, there were people that wrote down the Quran, but the majority of people memorized it. Now, during the time of Abu Bakr, which is in the year 12 after Hijrah, in which a lot of memorizers of the Quran were killed. I remember during the time of Abu Bakr, this is when a lot of people apostated. So there were a lot of conflict between those who apostated and the Muslims. And the people that were at the forefront of going to war, going into battle, were those that memorized the Quran. And that, again, is something that we have to think about, action and knowledge going together, right? So they were killed in skirmishes, especially the skirmish of Al-Yamama. Al-Yamama, famous incident that happened. So from them that were killed, from the people that memorized the Quran, was Salim, the Mawla of Abu Hudayfa. And Mawla meaning that someone accepted Islam under an individual, or they were freed by the individual. Okay, so Mawla could mean either one of those two. So like, for example, Sheikh Imam al-Bukhari, his grandfather was a Mawla, and it's a Mawla of Islam. That means he accepted Islam through that person and stuff like that. So they became related through that act. Okay, so Salim, who's the Mawla of Abu Hudayfa, who was one of the individuals that the Prophet ﷺ commanded that the Quran should be taken from, right? So obviously Salim, since he has a relation with Abu Hudayfa, he took the Quran from Abu Hudayfa, and the Prophet ﷺ has given him, validified his knowledge of the Quran and said that he's a person that you should take Quran from. So Abu Bakr ordered that the Quran should be compiled so it wouldn't be lost. All these people that memorized the Quran, they started dying in battle. He was worried that, if every one of the memorizers of the Quran, they died, shouldn't we take some steps into preserving that, making sure that the Quran is not lost? So he did that by compiling the Quran through Salim. Okay. Now the third step is actually going to be a hadith, or is entailed in a hadith that we're just going to read here, and it's narrated by, since Sahih Bukhari, narrated by Zayd ibn Thabit, and we spoke about Zayd, him being the person that gathered the Quran in the time of Uthman, right? And this is the third step that we spoke about. It's going to be mentioned here in the hadith. So it says here, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq sent for me. This is Zayd ibn Thabit talking, right? Abu Bakr as-Siddiq sent for me when the people of Yamama had been killed. Meaning that there was a number of the Prophet's companions were who fought against Musaylama. And Musaylama was an individual that claimed to be a prophet during the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and gained some followers after the death of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, so he says, I went to him and found Umar ibn al-Khattab sitting with him. Abu Bakr then said to me, Umar has come to me and said casualties were heavy among the Qurra. Qurra is a plural for reciters. So it means reciters, right? Qari is one, Qurra is more than three. And I said more than three and not more than one. Because Arabic actually has a specific way to talk about just two people, which is something that we don't have in English, right? We either have one or we have more than one. But in Arabic, we have one, you have two, and you have three and more. Okay. So yeah, a lot of the Qurra have been of the Quran. Those who recited and memorized the Quran, they have been killed, right? On the day of the battle of Yamama. And I am afraid that more heavy casualties may take place among the Qurra on other battlefields, whereby a large part of the Quran may be lost. Therefore, I suggest you, Abu Bakr, order that the Quran be collected. So this idea of collecting the Quran was the idea of Umar. Right? How many ideas did Umar have, mashallah, that turned out to be good for the religion? And that's why the Prophet ﷺ said that if there was to be a prophet after me, it would be Umar. Right? So, okay, so, where are we at? Okay. Okay, so I said to Umar, now this is Zayd ibn Thabit talking, right? After he heard what their plan was, says, I said to Umar, how can you do something which Allah's apostle, the Prophet ﷺ, did not do? And this is very important, that we see how the methodology of the companions were. Even though it seemed like it's something good, they still have to ask themselves that question. How many of us, we ask ourselves that question when we find out we're going to do something good? We just jump on right away. Oh, this is nice, let's do it. No, they go back. Prophet ﷺ, did he do it? Didn't he do it? And how can we justify doing something that he didn't do? Right? They ask themselves this stuff all the time as the companions. So, what was Umar's answer? Umar says, by Allah, this is a good project, right? This is something that's good to do. He swore by Allah for that. So Umar kept on arguing to me to accept his proposal till Allah opened my chest, opened my heart to it. And I began to realize the good in the idea which Umar had realized. Then Abu Bakr said to me, you are a wise young man, and we do not have any suspicion about you. Right? That means they trust him. And you used to write the divine revelation for Allah's apostle. So you should search for the fragmentary scripts of the Quran and collect it in one book. By Allah, if they had ordered me to shift one of the mountains, it would not have been heavier for me than this ordering me to collect the Quran. That means he felt that it was a difficult task. Even though you got to remember that Zayd ibn Thabit, he memorized the Quran. So he knows the Quran by heart, but he's still trying to find remnants that people have written of the Quran to use to gather the whole thing. So he said it was a difficult task, right? Then he says, then I said to Abu Bakr, how will you do so? Oh, hold on. Wait a minute. Did I skip something? Okay, scripture. Allah, they have ordered me, okay? I've been heavier to me that ordered me to collect. Okay, so then I said to Abu Bakr, how will you do something which Allah's apostle did not do? So Abu Bakr replied, by Allah, it is a good project. Abu Bakr kept on arguing me to accept his idea until Allah opened my chest for what he had opened the chest of Abu Bakr and Umar too. Right? So first, Umar had to convince Abu Bakr, right? And then Abu Bakr had to convince Zayd ibn Thabit. Right? I'm sorry, Zayd ibn Thabit. And they all said the same thing at the beginning. How can we do something that the Prophet ﷺ never did? Right? That shows that, different people, different ideas. What's the most important in their mind? You have, that's why there's a saying by Abdullah ibn Umar that said that, during our time, there were sins that we would consider as big as a mountain that nowadays you guys consider something as insignificant as a fly. There's definitely a shift in mentality from those of the companions to those people after them. Including us. We're from amongst those people. May Allah have mercy upon us and grant us ease and pardon us for our shortcomings. Ameen. Okay. All right. So he said that I started looking for the Quran and collecting it from what was written on palm stalks, thin white stones, and also from the men who knew it by heart, till I found the last verse of Surah At-Tawbah, Surah of repentance, right? Surah At-Tawbah. Oh yeah, with Abu Khuzaymah al-Ansari. And I did not find it with anybody other than him. The verse is, verily, there has come unto you an apostle, Muhammad from amongst you. جاءكم رسول من أنفسكم عزيز عليه ما عنتم حريص عليكم بالمؤمنين رؤوف رحيم. Right, that ayah. From amongst yourself, right? It grieves him that you should receive any injury or difficulty till the end of the Surah Al-Bara or Surah Al-Tawbah, which it's called, right? So then the complete manuscript copy of the Quran remained with Abu Bakr till he died, then with Umar until he died, and then with Hafsa, the daughter of Umar. Okay. All right, so continuing on with step 3. During the era of the leader of the believers, Uthman ibn Affan, in the year 25H, right, 25 AH or 25 after Hijrah, the reason why this came about was because of the difference in recitation. So the first time they gathered the Quran and collected it was because of the death of majority or a lot of the reciters, a lot of the memorizers of the Quran. The second time they tried it was because people started differing in how certain verses should have been recited. That means we're talking about accents, right? Not really like, words, but do you elongate here or do you shorten? Is there an A sound here or is it an E sound, right? And, as Muslims, we're picky when it comes to the words of Allah, as we should be. So even the differences like this can cause a disturbance amongst people who take this very seriously, as it should be. Right? So during the year 25 AH, so the reason why that this came about was because of the difference in recitation due to the differences, variations of the book form that companions had. This was done by Uthman out of fear that the people would differ about the book of Allah and become separated. Once again, another mentality that the companions had about being uniform, being together, and staying away from those issues that would separate the Muslims and cause division amongst themselves. Yet nowadays, people, they argue about the slightest thing or they're different in the slightest issue and they're ready to go move. Let alone just, split apart and not talk. They want to go somewhere else now because of that. May Allah help us with that. Okay, so okay, this is going to be, we're finished with that topic now. We're going to move on to another topic. And this is going to be the last topic that we're going to cover for tafsir. And we're going to move on to fiqh. Okay. And it's quite interesting that we're going to, last issue we're going to cover is about the word tafsir. Okay. And here you see that I have tafsir. This is the word tafsir in Arabic. And I translate it as explanation. Okay. So, whenever we talk about a word and we try to break down a word, there's always going to be two parts to it. The linguistic meaning and the meaning as a terminology or the Islamic meaning, right? But we can't really say Islamic meaning here. Rather, it's more appropriate to say terminology because we're talking about those people that delve into the science of explaining the Quran. They're the ones that use this word. Islamic meaning that it's a definition that Allah gave a word or His messenger gave something, right? So that's how something is considered Islamic definition. So instead, we're going to say terminology. Okay, so linguistically, the word tafsir is derived from the word al-fasr. So it's a fatha on the fa, a sukoon on the sin, and a ra at the end. So fasr, right? Fasr. So what does fasr mean? Fasr means to uncover. To uncover something that was concealed. So when something has been uncovered that was concealed, you say that has been fasr. But as a terminology, what does the word tafsir mean? It means clarifying the meaning of the Quran. Clarifying the meaning of the Quran, that is tafsir. So, it's important to know that we don't use the word tafsir when it comes to hadith. We don't use that word. There's another word that we use, who knows what it is? When we try to find out the meaning of hadith or the explanation of hadith, what word is used for that? Sharh. That's right. So sharh is what's used for anything outside of the realm of Quran. And for Quran, we use the word tafsir. Let me see. I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, that's oh no, this is part of the same segment. Now we're going to talk about the ruling of tafsir. Learning tafsir is obligatory. Learning tafsir is obligatory. And that's why we have this class. How do we know that? Allah says, Kitabun anzalnahu ilayka mubarakun liyadabir waliyadabiru ayatihi waliyatadhakkara ulul albab. So what is this saying? This verse is saying that a blessed book, which we have revealed to you, O Muhammad, that they might reflect upon it. Who are they? Us, the believers. Right? So that they might reflect upon its verses, and that this and that this is that those of understanding would be reminded. Okay, and then we also have this verse as well. أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ أَمْ عَلَى قُلُوبٍ أَقْفَالُهَا. Allah also says, then do they not reflect upon the Quran? Think about it. Reflect meaning thinking about its meaning, right? Do they not reflect upon the Quran, or are there locks upon their hearts? This first proof shows that Allah had made clear the wisdom behind the revelation of the Quran, which is so that it would be a reminder for the people and to be an admonishment, and so that they are admonished by it. As for reflection, then this is examining the words to come to their meaning. It is not permissible to gain admonishment from it without first understanding the meaning of those words. Okay? You can't gain admonishment from the Quran without knowing what it is it's talking about. You can only do that through understanding the Quran. Okay. Now the second verse, what do we understand from that? أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ. That verse, why do they not contemplate the Quran? It says, as for the second verse, then it shows that Allah rebukes those who do not ponder over the Quran. And he indicates that the reason for this is because they have a seal over their hearts. The people of the past would learn the Quran, or learn the words of the Quran and its meaning, because that was what allowed them to implement it in accordance to what Allah has intended. And that's the reason why during the khutbah I spoke about, after memorizing, going over those verses and stuff like that, knowing the meanings, the tafsir of those verses, not just memorizing them, moving on to the next thing, but going over it, pondering those words. Why did Allah say this? This way, here. What's the connection between this verse, the verse before it? When was the verse revealed? We discussed these things in this class, and we discussed it in the khutbah as well. Okay, what is the purpose of tafsir? What is the purpose of tafsir? So it is to arrive at the praiseworthy goal and great outcome, which is belief in the truthfulness of the information it presents and benefiting from it. So we want to know the meaning of it so we can believe in its truthfulness and then work upon that understanding that we have gained from it. This allows the implementation of what is presented therein in accordance to the intent of Allah, so that He may be worshipped upon insight. Okay? And that is that. Any questions as far as that? Tafsir, the word, and the benefits of it. We said it's obligatory, right? And we talked about the reason why we have to do it. So that's pretty much it. No, not right now. No. Okay. So with that being said, we're going to go on then to Kifayatul Ghulam. And And we're just going to cover, this will be the introduction to the issue of fasting, because it's getting ready for Ramadan and whatnot. So the issues dealing with the prayer we're going to cover after Ramadan. We're going to go back to that. Bithnillahi Jalla Jalalu. Which starts right around. Okay, here we go. Okay. Okay, so we're just going to cover this verse right here, where it says, Niyatu sawmi Ramadana fil ada min kulli yawmin min ghurubin kad bada. Right? Okay, so Niyah, everyone should know what that means. Intentions, right? And Niyah is one of the conditions of fasting. Okay? Sawm, this is the Arabic word for fasting. What's the other way to say fasting in Arabic? There's Sawm and Siyam, right? Siyam and Sawm from the same root word, but how do you say? I guess you can say the noun is different. Has two nouns from the same verb and stuff like that. So you can say Siyam or you can say Sawm. But what does Sawm mean linguistically? Linguistically, Sawm means imsak. That's another Arabic word. But the word imsak means to withhold. So when Maryam said, Inni nadartu li rabbi sawma, when Maryam, she said that I promised my Lord to fast, was she withholding from food? No. What was she withholding from? When she pointed to her child, right, Isa, and he started talking, what was she withholding? Speech. And that was very common amongst the children of Israel to do so which consists of withholding speech. Zechariah did the same thing. And la ukallima nasa illa ramza. He promised Allah that he won't speak for 3 days except through signs. That was his fasting. Okay? So, and that was the Sawm, I should say. That was the Sawm. That was the withholding that he was doing. So he was withholding from speech, while when we talk about fast, we're talking about withholding from food. But let's talk about the terminology, though. What do Muslims mean when we talk about Sawm? Right? We're definitely not talking about just imsak. We're definitely not talking about just withholding. So here it says imsakun an jami' al-muftirat or mufattirat bitulu' al-fajr as-sadiq ila ghurub ash-shams. So that is it in Arabic. So what does it mean in English? The definition of fasting is withholding from all things which invalidates the fasting, starting from the true Fajr. You know Fajr, there's two types of Fajr. There's a true one and there's a false one. So from the true Fajr to the setting of the sun. So that is a definition of fasting. So when we say that we're fasting, we're withholding from those things that would invalidate your fast. And we say those things that invalidate your fast are not, we're withholding from food or withholding from eating, because if you withhold from eating and then you have sexual relations, are you fasting? No. So you see why we left it general like that. Includes all of that. Yes. Huh? The true Fajr? Oh, what's the two? Okay, we said that there's two Fajrs, right? The true one and the false one. The false one is when you see a redness in the sky. It's before the true one, obviously. So the false Fajr comes first, right? And there's a brightness before it darkens a little bit, then becomes bright again. So sometimes someone would see that brightness in the sky and say, well, Fajr is in. And they were fooled by it. That's why it's called the false Fajr. And when this comes, this is when Bilal, radiallahu anhu, he would give the adhan. And he would give the adhan to tell people that were making tahajjud to stop praying. Right? And get ready for, if they have to fast, getting ready to fast and whatnot, and getting ready for Fajr to come in. And then there will be some time, and then Ibn Maktoum, then he would, who is blind, he will call the adhan for the real Fajr or the true Fajr. Okay, so now we have the definition of what fasting is. And those definitions are important, right? Scholars, when they think about defining something, it's not something that just pops out of their head right away. They have to think about this definition being inclusive and restrictive at the same time. Because if they said, like we said, they said that, fasting means not eating, then it's not restrictive. It's too inclusive, right? Because now that means that you can do other things other than not eating, and it won't invalidate your fast, which is not true. Okay? All right. Ramadan. Ramadan is the Islamic holy month in which fasting is obligated. So fasting is not obligated outside of Ramadan. Important to understand this. There is no other fasting outside of Ramadan that's obligated as a time, right, specified by Allah. Yes, go ahead. You can't do that. That's not fasting. See, that's what we made that. That's part of the definition was that fasting happens from the true Fajr to the setting of the sun. After that, if you try to fast after that, that's not considered fasting as it applies to what we're doing and stuff like that. That's a terminology. That's prohibited in Islam. That's called wisal. And something that the Prophet ﷺ used to do that. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And so the companions actually followed him on that. Because the companions, like good Muslims, they see the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam doing something, they follow suit. So they saw him doing it. I think for 3 days they did that, and then he prohibited them from doing it. But then their thing was like, we see you doing it. He says that innali rabbun yut'imuni wa yusqin. He said, I have a Lord that feeds me and gives me sustenance. He gives me the nourishment I need so I can do this. Right? So that was something that was specific for the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, but no one else is permitted to do that. No other Muslim. So a Muslim fast is from sun up basically to sundown. Okay. All right. This man is. I gotta fix this. You see all the words here are jumbled up, and let me try to fix that now, because it's kind of hard to conduct a class like this. And remember, we're only going to take this line, so this shouldn't take long, inshallah. Just bear with me here. 5 minutes and we're going to be done. Bismillahi jalla jalaluhu. Okay, there we go. Okay. All right, so let's try that. Okay, so that looks a lot better. Okay, so next the word min, which means min, from, right? So it's a preposition which normally has the meaning of from. Normally it has that meaning. But here, in this sentence, it means for, right? Then we have the word kul. Kul, which means every, or all as well. Okay? Yom, day. Ghurub, it's a noun. It's okay. Now we have to give a little explanation here. So ghurub is a noun. The verb of ghurub is gharabat. Right? That's the past tense. Gharabat. The present tense. Taghrubu. And it means to set in the west. So who knows what the Arabic word for Morocco is? Yes, Maghrib. From the same word. Because Maghrib was the furthest distance to the west for them. Right? And that's where the sun sets. So they call anything over there, that's Maghrib. Right? That's the place the sun sets. So Morocco is called Maghrib because of that. Yeah, so, and it's from that same word. Okay, next we have bada. And bada is a verb from bada yabdu, which means to appear. So what does this mean? What is the sheikh trying to tell us here? What is the sheikh trying to tell us? Okay, so the author is telling us that niyyah, or intention, is a condition for anyone who wants to fulfill the obligation of fasting. And that intention should be at the night for every day. So every day you have to have intentions. According to this scholar, according to this school of thought, right? In which fasting will be done. So every day of fasting in Ramadan is considered a separate act of worship. We spoke about this a long time ago. I don't know if you guys remember or who was present. I know Mukhtar might have been there, but when we spoke about fasting, and why is it the issue of intentions, it comes about in fasting. Do you make an intention for the whole month, or do you have to renew your intention every night before the fasting, right? So here we see that this school of thought says that you have to renew that intention every night. So every night before you eat your iftar, your suhoor, you have to have the intention to fast for Ramadan. Okay. Okay, what else do we have? What's the sheikh saying? That's it. That's pretty much, yep, that's it. So that is it for that line. So all we covered was that, from the conditions of fasting is niyyah. And that we understand that the sheikh, that it is obligatory for you to have niyyah or intentions for every day of fasting. Right? So that's what we got so far as a condition. Any questions? Pretty straightforward, right? Okay, so would there be no other questions? I mean, that's the end of class. So okay, go ahead. Yes, intentions in your heart and not verbally. Something that we've stressed over and over. There's only one time that you say your intentions out loud, and that is making Hajj. Right? That's the only time the Prophet ﷺ said his intentions out. When you say Labbaik Allahumma Umrah or Labbaik Allahumma Hajj. That's it. Other than that, praying, fasting, any other acts of worship, there is no intention that has been said out loud by the Prophet sallallahu wasallamu alayhi. Any other questions? Okay, so with that being said, when we say Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik wa ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant wa astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. By the way, this class, I tried to record it on my YouTube channel, and the brother Mukhtar, he has it recorded too on his Facebook, so you guys can go those things to maybe do review or something like that. Inshallah, that's available. Yeah, my YouTube channel is my name, Hanif Bashir, and I'm gonna send it to Mukhtar, so he can probably post that too on the Facebook. But basically the same things that he has, I have, even though I did start a little earlier, so I have more of the class than he does this time. But inshallah, they're gonna be two avenues in which you can get the class. He has a more nicer setup though as well too. As well. So yeah, like I put mine right next to the projector, so you're probably gonna hear the fan and all types of stuff. So Allah knows best.